Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Abby Ritchie, and you can find me right here every Tuesday talking with people who are engaged in age tech innovation. We care about the senior living space. And today we're going to talk about the Evolve 2023 conference. Before I invite my guest on, I want to say I am thrilled to announce that today's show is brought to you by Finn. Master the art and science of successful senior living with Finn's comprehensive senior living platform. Learn more at Finn.io. That's FYNN.io. And now let's run the intro. I want to go ahead and invite my guest on. Welcome to Tech Tuesday, Dr. Sarah Kyle from LE3. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Lovely to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, Sarah, once a month, we have you on Tech Tuesday to talk about the Evolve 2023 conference. We do this to increase awareness and continue to drive education and interaction and engagement towards this conference that we have every year. And so, we try to take a different theme once a month and break it down. And today's theme is about the Engaged Life Director's journey. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but welcome. Tell us how have you been and tell us what you hope to accomplish in this episode.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And I'm so excited. We're getting closer to Evolve. I'll kind of break it down real quick. We'll do it once now, but Evolve, it's a 4-day virtual event. It is expanded over or spans over 2 weeks. So really designed with that activity professional in mind, where I'm going to give you 9:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. You can make that fit into what time zone you are, but it's just that 4 hours a day for 4 days over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're getting closer. We've started nailing down the keynote speaker. We've got our ad board working on sessions. We've done a proposal for submissions to come in, looking at some best practices, kind of some speed dating, if you will. So excited. The link is there. It is still $139 early bird pricing. We'll talk about lots of ways that $139 is well worth the investment for yourself and your people. But Abby, I'm excited as we were kind of brainstorming about this journey that these professionals go on, kind of what it looks like from the beginning, where it goes in the middle, and how it ends up. It's not always what we want it to be, but I think there's a lot of hope that we can offer.
100%. When you come into a position as an Engaged Life Director, no doubt you're a person who has a lot of ideas, right?
Yes.
You have a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity. This is designed to be a fun position. So your mind is probably constantly percolating with neat things that you want to do, things you've been thinking about. And yet, I can only imagine you come into the position and right away you inherit someone else's mess.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the transition at any staff position in the community causes some type of disruption, but we see it predominantly in this engagement space. And why I think that is because the engagement person gets so close with the residents. There's an element of trust that's there. To your point, they come in and there is this overzealous, I can't wait, I'm excited, I'm researching on my own, it's maybe my first calendar, my first month, first events. And then things just don't always pan out like we want them to. And I equate this all the time that you cannot realistically meet 100 people's different ideas, experiences, backgrounds, expectations. And I think what people find is time seems so condensed.
Yeah.
And that can start to weigh on people where it feels like I'm not performing like I thought I would, or I don't feel like I'm excelling, I don't feel successful. And we go back a lot of times in these small moments that you have to walk out at the end of the day and think, what did I do to make an impact, and what did I do to make a difference? Even if that's on an individual level. Um, I think when we look at the big picture, it's about sometimes decorations or the ambiance, what the community looks like, how did I set up and prepare for it. And if you think about your normal home, if you had to put on kind of a dinner party every night for dinner, you would be exhausted, but you don't want a dinner party every night. And so, kind of overthinking, what do I need to do to be successful? What are those expectations? And then what realistically can I commit to? And then what do residents want from that? What is the feeling that they take away from all of the planning and prep that you do?
Yes, but still, you got that calendar there, right?
On that calendar,
The
and
calendar, like, that never stops, right? It's a daily thing with only so many hours, and you've got what was already on there, whether it's serving your residents or not. You also have a budget that you have to keep in mind, and then you still, in the back of your mind, have got your own creative ideas. And so, you know in some of these positions, you're just sort of brought on board without a lot of training, without onboarding, without a mentor. How does someone in this position get the type of resources that they need to begin to craft a sustainable and purposeful engaged life calendar and directory of services?
I'm going to answer this in two ways. The first way, I'm going to go back to when you talk about people come on. I think there is such a balance of trying to figure out, this is my role now. How do I keep in place everything that residents enjoy, that they expect, they're used to? But then how do I, usually when a new person comes in, whether it's not always bad when someone leaves, but it's this new chance for kind of a reemergence. Can we have new ideas? Can we have variety? Can we take the creativity that you have and turn it into enhanced programming? So that's that first balance. But where do people get tools and resources? And this is a great question. There are places out there that you can find them.
Mhm.
What I would caution against is going into the YouTube or the Google or the Pinterest wormholes, because they are vast. And just because they are vast doesn't mean that they are ideal. And the first thing I would say, and this is so much of what we're going to talk about at Evolve this year, is really thinking of a strategy. If you look at your program as a month to month of what I'm going to do, the months fly by so fast. Before you know it, it's the middle of April, right? I need to have May planned, and then I actually need to be planning June, but I need to be facilitating April. And if you think in a bigger picture, and we're going to go over this at Evolve, how do you look at an annual strategy, right? It's very similar to either a curriculum or a syllabus, where you look at these really important components you want to include, events that are going to be there. What is the cadence? How much entertainment do I need versus resident led versus staff led versus organic, just occurrence? And so you start to put together this more of a, what do I want to do this year? Right. And when you look at that 12-month approach, it starts to, I think, peel back some of the anxiety of, how am I going to do this each month, every month? You find the cadence of what you want to be repetition. You find when you want to offer new things, you can start to work around seasonality, right? There's all sorts of seasonality that goes into this place from a geographical perspective
Yeah.
or a holiday perspective.
Mhm.
The only thing I would say is, don't get fixated on this idea that we have to celebrate holidays and we have to have programming in a month because that's holiday based.
Mhm.
Because that starts to get stale too. And there's so many other options you can do, not just because it's Thanksgiving. We talk about gratitude or thankfulness, or we do offerings that are fall from a thematic perspective.
So ideally, a new engaged life director would be attending Evolve,
Yes,
right?
I think And we haven't talked about this the last 2 years at Evolve. And as we grow and learn, and we hear from our attendees and what is worthwhile, we hear from what are the stressors in the industry right now.
Mhm.
We know the stressors. It's always been occupancy, but occupancy is a super big stress right now. And then staffing on all levels. How are we making sure we have enough staff in the communities to do the roles that are there? And when staffing starts to be reduced, then people are pulled in very different directions, which they lose sight of their day-to-day functions. So, two ways that I want to think about new people coming into an organization.
Mhm.
Onboarding is something that every industry struggles with.
Yeah.
You can read about, a few companies in the top 100, Fortune 100 that just do it right. They've also been doing this for decades. They have unlimited resources to make sure this is a part of it. So if you don't have the best onboarding plan, method, resources, training hours available for these new Engaged Life directors, this is a great way to introduce them to what I would say a prolific conversation that is so much bigger than your organization. It's about the industry, but it's also about older people's expectations and what we're starting to learn from, if you look at communities, someone 65 to 105 resides there, and those expectations are different. So they get a crash course of what I would say of what does this all entail? Quickly start to learn about different levels, how you program at a high acuity level versus an active adult or an independent. So I would say don't take that as something defensive. Maybe we didn't provide the best onboarding and we know that, but this is a way to supplement that in a way that is much bigger than your organization. It's going to give them tools and resources from peers, colleagues, veterans, newbies. It just opens up their world to
Mhm.
what engagement and life enrichment, whatever we're going to call it, can be in senior living across the spectrum.
So there's two things I wanted to ask you about that you kind of touched on. The first one is, you know, when you come into a position like this, how soon can you realistically start making those changes? Because it seems to me like you got to kind of sit back a little bit
Mhm.
and do what the last person did for a little bit and, check the temperature and then you gradually make the changes. And then the other thing that I'm noticing this year, 2023, as opposed to last year, is that some of the communities I'm working with, they've shelved a lot of their monthly themes. And instead, they're doing an annual focus, like an annual focus on resiliency, for
Yes.
instance, and building activities into that, or an annual focus on relationships so that their activities are built upon getting to know other members in the community.
Yeah. The first thing on changes, I think this is such an interesting conversation. I think we're afraid to make changes as quickly as we could because we go with the myth that older people don't like change. I said it's like people don't like change. It has nothing to do with age. We like homeostasis. Our bodies like it. That's what's comfortable. That's what we're
Yeah.
used to. The best way to think about change is not in a way that you disrupt, but you learn about what needs to be changed by asking questions. And so in that first month, I would tell any engaged live person is that is your month where you're just taking in information. As
Mhm.
much information, as many conversations you can have. Don't get, you know, over zealous, I already said that word, but don't get like, oh, I have to change everything.
Yeah.
Um, really, I wrote something today about ask what's missing, right? Don't
Uh-huh.
if we ask what people like, but ask what's missing. What do you wish you had the opportunity to experience? Not because I'm leading it, right? This isn't about a new person coming in and this is my ideas and my creativity and this is what we're going to do. But as a collective group of residents who live here, what do you want to do? And this isn't about, oh, it's a new person, so we can do it. This should be continual feedback that we ask every year as people are growing and living with us. Um, and it's like an annual review, right? But it's continuous, and you're always asking that. So that's, don't be so scared of change. And I think there's a different way to address it by just, I'm going to change, right?
Mhm.
We're going to make some differences. We're going to offer new things. We're going to try something out. We're going to maybe remove something that was stale. Every program has a life to it. And it's okay to acknowledge when those are just old.
Yeah.
Everything from asking about vendors, entertainers that you're using. There's a really cool way that you can reset with new staff where you can start to ask, were we subscribing to this solution just because someone else made that decision before?
Mhm.
Um, the resources I'm using, the way that we've gone about things, it's all up for conversation. And then remind me, I wrote, and this is hilarious, and I'll just be it. I wrote down the why question mark. And I know that was your second question, but I don't know what that was.
No problem. Well, we also talked about the theme, right? So
Oh, yeah.
instead of having like this monthly theme that's maybe built on a holiday, but instead is to have an annual theme built on resiliency, for instance,
Yeah.
or connection.
Yes. When you take a bigger approach, to me, it's more encompassing of a whole person, it's more
Mhm.
holistic. And just when you say resilience, you can look at resilience from a cognitive perspective of what are we doing from a brain health to be resilient in that factor. You can look at it from a physical perspective of what are we doing to our bodies to be resilient. How are we learning from experiences and navigating ups and downs of the world? We see resilience all the time with life happens in these communities. We experience loss and grief, and internally, but also externally as well. And all of those things are a way to have more in depth conversations, to talk about some of these struggles. Talk about death and dying. We push away from that, but there's a lot of resilience and growth that happens when we have hard conversations. Um, the other thing that I think is beautiful about these annual themes, and you can do some, there's a lot of things that you can do it around, taking some of these larger words and then breaking them down, but it lets staff and families and prospects be
Yeah.
more involved because it is expansive
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter in age. Everyone has these stories.
Mhm.
You know, Other themes that I think of are novelty. Get rid of the idea of change, but novelty. And
Yeah.
if you ask the question, what are people most fearful of in senior living? It's cognitive decline is always number one. If you quit talking about cognitive decline as a negative and you start talking about novelty, people can accept that on a different level. It doesn't seem as personal or intimidating. So when you want to do changes, when you're thinking about strategic initiatives that are, is that infrastructure? Is it technology? Is it staffing structure? Is it a new build? Is it, you're adding, a memory support wing to your community? All of that can be around novelty, where it parlays into the organizational structure, where you're having conversations about significant changes. I look at this with acquisitions and divestitures. This is all about novelty, resilience, more life lessons, and not as party
Yeah.
fun promoted.
So, speaking of the lessons, I want to get back to the topic of evolve and how a life enrichment director is going to be learning this type of of redirection at Evolve, as well as coming into a space where they're going to have a networks of other people who they're going to be able to bounce ideas off. And I don't mean just talking about crafts. I mean talking about direction and a whole community direction in a much bigger way than just arts and crafts.
Yeah.
Okay. And so and have you seen that type of interaction and community network created in past years?
Yes. So one thing that I think is pretty cool is we're not here for ideas, right? Ideas can be found all over the internet.
Mhm.
You
Right.
can find them anywhere. Ideas are sometimes needed, but ideas are hard to sometimes pull off with just an idea. You need
Mhm.
more of a structure, then that's a good idea. So one way that I love what this conference has evolved to, and I think that's hilarious too. As we've done this for 3 years, it's familiar faces that keep coming back. And we've been able to create groups and relationships between engaged live people from different organizations. Sometimes, if we think about the sales and the marketing, we become pretty insular that we don't want to share ideas because we're all competing against the same ones. There is some beauty about this conference where people get to share ideas, not to be better. I'm going to hold all of it to my chest because I want to be a better community than you, right? The impetus is always about the end user. It's about the resident and how can we give them the best life in a community they've chosen to live in with us. But there is a networking through the entire conference. We have a prolific chat room, and it's not just, hey, I'm saying hi, but it's people being present in the discussion. They're interacting, they're meeting people, and they are building relationships. And what I think that emulates is how do I go back and how do I build relationships between residents in my community, right?
Mhm.
And if just one small question at the start of a day can give a string of 200 comments, and then we love it, there's side chats going on, right? Helping to see how that is a strategic option in your community. And um, it's not something planned, right? It's just organic in the chat. So you start to see how these relationships build. I think they also get support that I'm not doing this alone.
Mhm.
And sometimes it just feels better to like, oh my gosh, you have the same struggles. Um, budget's a struggle, or getting residents to come to activities. Motivation is a struggle. How do I get my care team to help me? And there is this peppering in of ideas from peers, which I think it goes such a long way instead of just hearing maybe esteemed colleagues or people in leadership positions telling you how you should do something, when in the back of your head sometimes you're thinking, okay, but you're not here. Like, you're not here in the community with me doing it. um,
Yeah. One time I was in such a group and they did a breakout room and they said, tell us what's one thing that's really working well for you, and what's one thing you're currently struggling with. And everyone shared. And then the person who was also struggling with the same thing that I was struggling with, we ended up meeting and in accountability, getting together once a week and continuing to help each other push through those struggles. And that was huge.
Ideally, through these conferences, we want to exchange information with one another. We hope that there are side groups that start to meet up and recognize that they can do this kind of in their own time. How can I network with people in my local market
Yeah.
and have this sense of it's support and it's relationship? And sometimes when that burnout is happening or the frustration, it just feels better to get kind of a quick win. The one thing we're doing this year that is different, that we were highly intentional about, is sessions can go well. And I think in any conference, you get this rah, rah, yay, this was great. I'm so invigorated and I can't wait to take this back. And then you were like, exactly my question. What was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you said that was a great idea and I took some notes, but after a lot, I don't know what those notes mean. And so we're asking every speaker to have a one page of here's how you apply this, right?
Mhm.
Like, here's the topic, here's what we're talking about, here's 3 ways to apply this in your community, whether that's here's resources you may need, the time that it may work best, what is a format. We're doing this, so I'm super excited. I'm looking at time. Men's Shed. The Men's Shed is going to be one of the presentations. They are a really cool community-based group, and they started out just in the community level, not senior living, but community, and older adults come together, older men, hang out, and they just do cool stuff. It's like a modern day coffee shop and a wood shop where they're building and sharing knowledge and tools and you name it. So they're coming on, and they're going to present everything that they've learned in starting up these sheds. They're going to give opportunities that you can connect with local sheds in your market, but they're also going to share with you, how could I start my own shed in my community? How do I, talk about this with men and women, right? Men, it's not individualized just to men, but how do I start this conversation? How do I figure out if there's interest? What's safe? I mean, that's the whole thing. You're like, oh, it's safe. So there's tips in every session that you walk away and you can print these out and you
Mhm.
have kind of a resource manual of all of the things we've talked about. So even if you can't make all 4 days, you have access instead of just the abstract and the description and the objectives, really giving tools and application to, okay, now how do I use it?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because no doubt the struggle is real, but Evolve helps break it down and allows you to put your your thoughts and your the ideas that you're learning and what's worked with other people into action in very measurable ways.
Yeah. One other thing I will say, and this is something that I don't know if it gets enough attention, but I do see it in so many companies I work with, just to do a basic skills assessment. When we hire these people to come in, I feel like they put on this hat that says, I have to be able to do everything.
Mhm.
I have to be able to lead exercise. I have to be able to find the right vendors, find entertainment. I need to be able to decorate. I need to be able to play music or do arts and crafts. Lead mindfulness, lead brain exercise. And that's just not plausible, right? Like there's things that I am not good at. I will never be good at. I can learn them, but I may not want to facilitate that and it's not enjoyable to me. And so doing this kind of skills assessment of what am I good at? What are my natural strengths? Once I have those, then how do I look at spending my budget or sourcing resources, content, volunteers, whatever that maybe that I can fill these gaps where I don't have to take on every thing that residents are wanting to do and become prolific at it. But I can capitalize on my strengths. I can budget and resource things I'm not good at. And then I have this complete kind of offering of a program that people want to be in charge, right? So I'm still in charge of delivering, but it's not solely dependent upon all my attributes that
Mhm.
I just can't get. And
Yeah.
also talking to your staff about that, putting out those limitations from the beginning. I see this is what has been done or what it's led, but that's not my forte. And telling residents that, I can help you with this. Is there anyone who knows this? Like,
Yeah.
please let that become moments where you can look at residents to interject and facilitate and lead, not because you're asking them, but you're saying, this isn't what I'm good at. And if you guys like this as a community, let's find a way to still offer it.
Yeah, that's so valuable. That's so valuable, and really it talks about another aspect, which is getting the resident involvement in terms of their purpose and their abilities for sure, for sure. And I would love to hear from more people eventually who have attended past Evolve conferences and have taken away nuggets that they've been able to implement at their communities in the days to come. So if you have any of that, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hear about that, and let's make more people feel comfortable in knowing that they're going to get the enrichment and the support and the network and the practical tools that they need by coming to the conference. Sound good?
Yes, sounds great. And we can't wait to see everybody. It feels like family. So I'm excited for it to be back.
Awesome. Awesome. Sarah, when people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
You can find me at www.le3solutions.com or on LinkedIn, Sarah Kyle, or my email is skyle@le3solutions.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you do have any questions for me, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I just wanted to let everyone know today's show was brought to us by Fin. Visit Fin.io to learn how to improve residents' well being forecast costs, and drive NOI with Finn's comprehensive senior living platform. That's Finn, FYNN.io. And with that, I want to wish you all a wonderful week, and we will see you right back here next week.